All right, I think we are live. So welcome everyone to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Hope you're all having a good 4th of July weekend here. And thanks so much for stopping by. So like all the other usual live streams here, we're going to try and go for about 2 hours or so. We'll see. I know there's another World Cup game tonight. So it's just there like so many games, like trying to schedule around them is impossible here. Thankfully, it seems like Wednesday's live stream, there won't be a game on Wednesday. But then I think next Sunday should be clear too. But the following Sunday is the final. So in 2 weeks, I'm not even going to try. I'm just going to not do a live stream on that Sunday. So just be aware of that for 2 weeks from now for those of you who are regulars. But yeah, I'm going to try and navigate. I think also not this coming Wednesday, but the following Wednesday, I think also there's going to be a game. So it'll be a little spotty with live streams here because I'm not going to compete with, especially those later World Cup games. There's going to be probably a little bit more competition. Sorry, I'm just trying to get my thing a little more straightened out here, and then we will proceed. So, all right, let me see here. Thanks so much to Vishal, Lanswath, Brian, Jazz, B. Mitchell, and let me see. Any others here? Luke as well. So thanks so much for stopping by, those of you. But yeah, we'll try and go for 2 hours. We'll see. If it's kind of dead, we can head out earlier too. We'll just have to play it by ear here tonight. But Michelle says, first, I'm still in North Carolina. My flight back home got canceled today due to weather, so now I leave Tuesday instead. Well, sorry to hear that you had to stick around a little bit longer. Hopefully it's not too bad. It sounds like, I think, you have some family there, so hopefully you're not out extra hotel days or anything like that. But anyway, hope you're having a good time nonetheless. And it's crazy the weather is so bad that they've pushed back 2 days. That's nuts. Hopefully you weren't stuck on a plane or in an airport for too long, until they aborted mission there. But Lancelot says, hello, everyone. I hope everyone had a safe and happy 4th. My spot this week was a late 60s gray Mercury Cougar. Very nice spot. I see Brian's also said he hopes the family had a happy 4th. I hope you did as well. Yeah, my spots here, I saw a ton of stuff because we actually drove down to West Virginia for the 4th. We have some family down there, and there is so much. I mean, I could probably go on for a solid minute if I was actually able to remember everything I saw. But so one of the ones that was kind of a standout thing was there was an old Ford Lightning that was towing a Ford Courier truck, like the old one from the 70s. It was like in pristine condition. And so that was an interesting combo. I saw a bunch of Porsches, including a new 911 GTS. Saw a GT3 RS in a Martini livery, which was cool. There was an older Shelby Cobra, like the SVT, like the SN97 or SN95 generation Cobra convertible, which was kind of cool. I didn't recall they even did the convertible. I had forgotten. I thought it was just the coupe, but pretty sure it was a real convertible there. That was cool to see. And what other stuff? Not a bunch of exotics, but just a bunch of really cool, like muscle cars, some quirky stuff. But I see them and then they evaporate from my brain shortly thereafter. But yeah, there's so many though that were pretty wild. So anyway, I had a fun weekend here spotting some cool cars. I hope you guys saw some cool cars. And there's usually some car shows and stuff around the 4th. So hopefully you guys got to see some cool stuff there too. And Jazz says, Matt, would you and your wife have leased an Optic instead of the Lyric if the Optic had CarPlay? I think probably. So whenever I mention this to Beth, she says that she really does like the extra space of the Lyric, but it's not that much more space, honestly. We didn't run numbers for Optic because, again, it just wasn't a consideration for us. But if we had ran numbers at the same time we were running them on the Lyric and it was like vastly cheaper, again, assuming it had CarPlay, I probably would have, advocated to just go down to the Optic. So yes, I'm pretty certain we would have an Optic if it wasn't for CarPlay, not being in that. So yeah, it's that big of a deal to us. We're probably paying at least an extra $100 a month for the Lyric. I mean, obviously you get more as well. It's not just CarPlay, but like that's one of the main reasons why we decided to pay more, for that. And I also think lyrics. I mean, not like there any EV is going to be a good, or a lesser depreciating asset necessarily, but I think that lyrics may hold their value a little bit better, especially if GM doesn't reverse course. I think this is part of why the lyric sells so well, because it's really, I think the last EV, I think they actually pulled it from Hummer, so I think it is actually the last EV from GM to have it. Um, and I think that's part of why ZDX sold as well as it did, why Prologue sells as well as it has in the past. Um, but yeah, lyrics so nice though. We were just driving around a bunch today too, and man, that thing is still. I really like it. And honestly, like even though I complained about the few little gripes we have with it, and the build quality isn't amazing. Um, Everything else is just so good that, like, yes, because a trim piece isn't perfectly aligned, like, yes, that's a little bit annoying, but like the car is really good. And if we see some real intense inflation and we see some really high prices next year, as if the next chip shortage here gets bad with RAM and stuff, we may even just buy that out. That's entirely a possibility, because we do like it enough to keep it. Now, would I want to keep it 10 plus years with those build quality things? Because that makes me question long-term durability. But, buying it out and keeping it for a few more years until, things improve, is an option, I think, possibly. We'll just have to see. And it also comes down to what the buyout price would be, because the contracted buyout price is garbage. We would never go for that. But it's just because of the way they structure leases during the tax credit era. I won't get into it, but basically it just makes it all wonky from a residual standpoint. It just makes it so no one actually wants to buy out their GM lease at the end of it, because the values are terrible. But you can sell them, hey, look, like, I can give you market value for it instead of whatever is contracted, and seems like they do take that sometimes. So if we could actually buy it for market value next year, that might be on the table. We'll have to see again how everything's going. Maybe we'll go for a cheaper EV. Maybe we'll be able to get something, at least something new again. We'll have to see what happens. But yeah, at least we have about a year or so to have to worry about that. Abby Mitchell says, is it just me, or YouTube won't let anyone else get on the live stream until 10 minutes out now? That's weird. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's a thing they've changed. I'm not sure. I haven't heard about that, but thanks for letting me know. He says, on a lighter note, last week I was coming home from a huge international truck show in Huron, South Dakota. They got about 200 trucks, including 6 of the 300 1976 Bicentennial Scouts in 3 of the 4 variants. Very cool. That sounds like a cool show for truck lovers. That's fun. And Michelle says, what's something on a brand's cars that bothers you? For me, it's all the current GM cars, turn signals. The blinking speed is so weird that it bothers me. Interesting. So is it different? I feel like it's not, but maybe I'm just conditioned to it now with the Cadillac. But I never had that, even when it was new, last year. I didn't have that jump out at me. On a brand's cars in general, I feel like there must be something, but I think the only thing, as far as like, the things I've been annoyed with the EVs from Subaru and Toyota is, that head-up display cluster thing they're trying to do, which blocks your view. That's something that, is universally crappy in everything it's in. But other than that, I'm trying to think of, like, yeah. I mean, okay, well, actually, no. Now that I've thought of it, there are 2 things. One is, I really hate how GM vehicles put the reverse lights on as a courtesy light whenever you're leaving the vehicle. I actually turn it off in our Lyric, but like, so you can turn it off, but it's on by default. Most people leave it on. Where everyone, I'm like freaking out, like, is their car reversing? If I don't see the person around and that courtesy light's on, I'm like sitting there, like, are they going to back out? And it's like confusing. Like, you should not be using reverse lights for anything other than reversing, in my opinion. So that's one gripe. Another gripe, and this is multiple brands, but I think GM still does this typically. And then Stellantis does this, and so does Subaru. Auto playing radio. I hate, that's probably my number one as far as like brand wide pet peeve things. that's probably my number one pet peeve in a lot of new cars is auto playing stereo. And I deal with it in the Fiat. I just have to hit pause the second I turn the vehicle on, which is so stupid that again, it's weird. It's like they're like maybe they think it's like a courtesy thing, but to me, it's like, why are you shoving media down my throat the second I turn my car on? Because that's what it feels like to me. And even like the Subarus do this too now, and I hate that. And I don't think the BRZ does because it's a Toyota kind of infotainment, but like everything else does, WRX does, and all the others, and it makes it extra bad in WRX. So getting on my Subaru soapbox for just a brief moment, the infotainment is so god awful slow in that thing, and all the Subarus outside of the new Outback or the EVs, because none of them those don't use the Subaru stuff anymore. But like that vertical thing is so slow, and it wants to autoplay. So you get in the car, and then okay, it starts playing music. It's fast enough to do that really quickly, but it's too slow to let me pause it or do anything else with the screen for the first 15 seconds or more. So I'm sitting there with the wrong climate controls, the wrong, either it's autoplay on the radio. You can just like hit the volume knob and like mute it. But if you're a weirdo like myself that actually is listening to tracks and doesn't want to miss anything, or if you're listening to a podcast, just muting it then keeps it playing in the background. And so that's a problem too. Like the Fiat, I could just mute it, but then it's like, okay, well now I've lost my place completely in the podcast I was listening to or whatever, or in the music where I don't want to miss a verse of the song or whatever. It's kind of annoying with that whole thing too. So yeah, that's probably the biggest one. And I don't know why. I've never asked an auto executive why that's set up that way. I should ask someone someday because I would love to actually get an intelligent answer about why that is. Because there's, again, multiple companies that do that, but the companies that don't are immediately that's like starting off on a right foot with me whenever you don't blast media at me the second I turn the freaking car on. But anyway, moving on here. Lancelot says people still use blinkers. Valid question, Lancelot. Just today out on the highway, the amount of horrible lane discipline and people not using blinkers and driving properly is still pretty mind-boggling. But also he says around here, even the police think of it as a suggestion. Man, that's pretty bad. They're always above the law. They just do whatever they want. So I guess for them, it's always been optional, but doesn't make it any better. And B. Mitchell says he sees maybe half the drivers in MSP area do, which is and then far better in rural areas. Well, that's good, at least that they're signaling there. And I see Lancelot, definitely bringing up the BMW owners. But I feel like a lot of luxury car owners don't do that too. I know BMW is the funny, stereotype, but like a lot of luxury car, also a lot of exotics don't do it. Again, it's just people that just, they don't need to be bothered with it. They're better than that or whatever. And I will have you know, though, my daughter actually asks about turn signal usage. She's like, why did you use it here? Why didn't you use it here? And like, I'm explaining to her like times where, you need to use it, times where you don't need to use it. And she's like learning. So my 5-year-old probably has a better grasp on turn signals now than I'd say about half of the driving population in America. So I'm raising her right. She's learning what turn signals are for. But B. Mitchell says, I find Audi and Subi owners to be the worst offenders lately. Jacked 3/4 ton and larger oil burners not far behind. Yeah. A lot of lifted trucks also, aren't big fans of that. I'm assuming because they think they can just drive over anything in their path anyway, so it doesn't matter. And Luke says, my AC has been more overworked than a minimum wage worker this last week. I think that can be said for much of the country. Yeah, well, good on your AC for sticking it out and hanging in there. Ours was struggling a little bit this week. Our air conditioning is probably about as old as I am. And knock on wood, it's hanging in there, but by a thread, I think. So hoping it keeps on going here the rest of the summer. And Linda, thanks for stopping by. And Fazlin as well. He says, how was your day? It was a pretty good one. We had some fun here. Hope you had a good one too. Linda says she saw a Tesla truck. Ah, sorry to hear that. Yeah, I saw several. Actually, at one point, I saw a Cybertruck passing another Cybertruck. They were going opposite directions there. I don't know if they waved or anything. I didn't see, but yeah, I see a decent amount of them around here, unfortunately. Lancelot, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate the generosity. And it doesn't look like YouTube gave them to anyone who's actually in the live stream with us here, unfortunately, but hopefully they can gift them to some people here in the future. But hopefully those others enjoy the memberships as well. And thank you so much for your generosity, Lancelot. And let me see. Jerry, thanks for stopping by. Says happy 5th of July, Matt and chat. Hope you've been having a good weekend here too, Jerry. And Kevin, thanks for stopping by too. And his Independence Day was good. That's good to hear. And Michelle says, 0 complaints. I'm at my parents' house, so no hotels or anything. Also nice to get more seat time in the Sportage and the TX2. Met up with my friends a lot in my time here too. That's awesome. That's great to hear. And Jack says, what are your thoughts on the new Ferrari manual transmission? So I actually did a full rant on this. I know most people probably missed it because it's got like 1,200 views. Like no one watched it, so that's fine. I'm sure the algorithm just buried it, so that's probably why you haven't heard all my thoughts on that already. But yeah, I love it. I'm super excited for it. I know there's a bunch of people online that are, all mad about it because there can be no news that doesn't upset people anymore. But to me, it's again another one of these instances of I'm not going to be picky. Like it's a manual from a company that didn't have to do it and hasn't done it for 14 years. I look at it as a gift, and I think it's great. I mean, and it sounds like it's really well done. And whether or not you like it, like I think this is the future because there are enough people out there that do want manuals into the future, and this is why all these car companies have patented a similar type of thing, and they're planning on rolling these things out in their EVs and a bunch of this stuff. We're seeing even baby steps from some companies like Honda with the shifting and the Prelude, and others where like the Prelude, like you can't put a manual in there if you're going to keep the hybrid powertrain. It just the way that powertrain works, it doesn't work with a regular transmission, and you couldn't put one in because then the engine and the whole system wouldn't work right. So like in instances like that, or instances like EVs, I would rather have that than nothing at all. It's the same thing with Ioniq 5N. Like, okay, if you want to have silence, that's an option. And the Ioniq 5N gives you that option too, to have silence and no shifts. But it's way more fun with sounds and with shifts. And, again, it's you're making lemonade out of lemons. Like, yes, it's not what it used to be. It never will be. But this is the case with anything. I mean, all these advancements we've seen with the manual transmission in general have made it easier. I mean, the amount of people that I'm sure cried whenever synchros came in and said, oh, real men double clutch, or, people that, were angry about auto rev match downshifts. Oh, real enthusiasts can rev match themselves. I mean, there's been advancements. And to me, this is just the next evolution. And this helps manual survival. And you might say, well, it's not surviving because it's not a real manual, but like this helps it to survive because, that car is going to now be opening up manuals, because I guess we have to use air quotes for every time I say this now for the Ferrari, but it opens that up to people who are in LA traffic all the time, but they want that manual experience without, doing a leg workout. And sure, you can make the argument, oh, well, just, quit being a pansy and deal with, leg workout. But like, again, like we are allowed to have advancements and have things be more comfortable and easier and less gruesome. And like that, that doesn't have to be a bad thing. It's just evolution, making things better. Why would you not want an on-demand manual? Like to me, it's like, it's the best of both worlds. You have your manual when you feel like it. You have an automatic when you don't feel like it. It's kind of perfect in my opinion. And I mean, I will admit I'm a Ferrari fan, and I love the 12 cylindry in general. So to me, that's like instant add to my lottery dream car wish list. But like, I don't like. I truly think this is the future. If you want manuals to stick around, this is the future of them. Is people who can opt into them when they feel like it and opt out when they don't. You're going to get way more of a higher take rate, and then that will allow them to proliferate more of the performance car sector. And I think this is going to be probably the way you will see it go for Elantra N. I'm pretty sure Elantra N is going to ditch the manual because there's just, I can't imagine them making a business case for a manual for one cheap car that has, not a huge amount of buyers and that's going to keep a low price tag. You can't bundle in a price premium for a manual because no one's going to go for that and something like that, you know. So in a car like that where it has to be cheap, you got to find like a shortcut, and the shortcut is keep the dual clutch. And then you have, this exact same thing Ferrari's done. And I think actually Hyundai has a patent for something like that already. So don't be surprised if you see this same exact fake manual in the Elantra N. I think it'll be great in that too, because obviously Hyundai has shown the way forward and proven that they are very good at this, simulated manual stuff. So I think you're going to see that here for Elantra N most likely, and you'll see it, in a lot of vehicles, I think, going forward into the future, assuming this isn't a giant flop for Ferrari. But I think this is another one of those moments like Ioniq 5N, where it's a real game changer, and it'll be huge, and I think it'll be a good thing. Same way Ioniq 5N, was maybe controversial to some, but most people really loved it whenever they actually drove it. And now Porsche's copying that for their stuff going forward. Lamborghini was benchmarking it while they were still working on their EV, and others are really paying attention and taking note of this. So I think, it'll be the same thing with the 12-cylinder Manuel. I think that's going to be a really big deal for the future of cars, and I'm happy for it. Because again, if the option is everything is an automatic or that simulated manual, I'll take that every day of the week, every day without question. And if you can't stand the idea of having it not be, a clutch cable and everything else, you've got the past 125 years of cars to pick from. Knock yourself out. That's that's my take on that. Maybe an unpopular opinion, but those are my thoughts on it. Because I'm so tired of people just whining and complaining about any kind of advancement, any kind of creativity, anything that's not like a 15-year-old powertrain. Everyone's crying about it, and I'm over it. So anyway, so Theodore says, hope you and yours have a safe 4th. Keep up the work. Big fan. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Theodore. Hope you're doing well and had a good one too. And Theodore says, what's the deal with your shirt? You get the joke. So yes, this is a Seinfeld reference. Kramer's famous line about these pretzels making him thirsty as a gift for Christmas there, because they know I'm a Seinfeld fan. So that's what that is. Yeah, I know it probably makes less sense, and you can only see half the quote, and you don't see anything except Kramer's hair. But yeah. And Luke says, my Maverick does that to the minute it connects to Android Auto. It blares the music from before, and I have to hover my hand over the volume knob or just remember to turn it down when I park. Yeah, and it's annoying. That's weird that I didn't think Ford did that, because the Bullet never did that. None of the Mustangs ever did that. Maybe the new version of Sync does that. But it's weird. I don't recall that being the case. I feel like, Ford wasn't one of the ones I was annoyed with about that. Maybe is there a setting? I'm sure you've checked already, but maybe there's a setting to turn it off in the Ford. I don't know. But yeah, sorry to hear you have to deal with that too. And he also says he also hates return to center turn signals. Those sometimes can be, that's kind of the way I think all turn signals work, right, at this point. But there are sometimes where that I'm wishing it would turn off because I haven't turned the wheel just far enough yet, but you can always do it yourself, I suppose. But Jack's also asking, what's some of the most memorable reviews you've done in the cars that stand out to you? There's a lot. At this point, I've done almost 1,000 car reviews. I think I'm about 70 cars away from 1,000. And that's a personal goal for me. Regardless of how this channel fares, I really want to make it to at least, which I think by the rate I'm going should be pretty early in 2027, maybe even before 2027. But I want to get to 1,000 reviews at the very least, and hopefully far beyond that. But as far as the most memorable ones, I mean, I think one of the top ones was the Aston Martin Vantage I had last year, just because that's the first and only currently Aston Martin press car I've ever gotten. But from a career, if you can call it that, from this job standpoint, that's like the highest and most impressive press car I've ever gotten. And it's also one of my favorite brands. So that was a real special week to have that. And that one will forever stand out in my mind. And then even like the first press car I ever got, which isn't anything remarkable, was the Chevy Colorado, the last generation. Not like I don't even like them that much, but like that was the first press car. GM was the first company to take a risk on me as Subaru Dorks fan, and give a Subaru fan a Chevy to review. But I will forever remember that. That was amazing, and I remember the feeling of having my first press car delivered and how exciting it was. And so yeah, that's another one that stands out. But then a lot of the ones that are the most. I mean, there was like the NSX, which was another really impressive one. The Corvette Z06 is another one that was really one of the real special ones here, the past 5 years especially. Otherwise, a lot of them were just the ones that I was fortunate enough to meet up with some of you and review. So many awesome and very friendly, kind people that me drive their brand new cars or their modified to perfection cars, their babies, like the V8 Miata is going to be one, partially because that's one of the most successful reviews, actually the most successful one by a long shot that I've done here in the 2020s at least. So that one, but I was the first person outside of their shop to drive that car. And that's an incredible, vote of confidence and just an incredible gift also from a reviewing standpoint to have that exclusive or whatever. But like, that was really, kind of memorable. And even there's been a couple other little things, like not with reviews, but like whenever the Cadillac Celestiq debuted, I had the first time slot to film that for all the media waves for Celestiq. So I was literally the first person. They told me this, at least. I don't know if they're just full of crap or what, but like they told me I was the first person outside of GM to see the Celestiq. And they're like, this is really exciting to like be able to start showing it to people and talk about it, with people and getting everyone's like reactions to my first reaction to the car and like that, like, and being in the GM Design Dome, which is a very legendary place from a historical car standpoint. Being in the GM Design Dome with Cadillac's return to a standard of the world, super high class kind of thing, and being the first, according to them, outside of GM to see it, that was a real honor and a very, kind of like pinch yourself kind of moment. And there's been a lot of those, wild kind of special things, with car shows, seeing the big surprise of the Ford GT at the Detroit Auto Show and like standing next to Shmi 150 and us both like, freaking out about this giant surprise that no one knew about that was in the basement at Ford. Seeing whenever the Bullet Mustang debuted here for, the 2019 version in 2018 and like seeing it roll out with the movie car that no one knew that they were collabing with. That car had been hidden for basically about 50 years. And I remember like even going on the early web in the late 90s, early 2000s with my dad, like trying to hunt down like the rumors of where that car is and the lore of that. And then to like I was like second row of the worldwide, reveal of that car after being hidden for decades. And so there's been some very special things like that as well, which again, not really press cars, but very special kind of moments where it's like, I'm so thankful that I'm doing this when I have done it. And even just, being able to cover the golden era of muscle here, in the 2010s, that I think won't be repeated, probably ever again, at least not in that way. Is I think, something I'm very grateful that I kind of got into this around the right time. And I'm very grateful for that too, right? When cars were kind of really heating up, obviously it was, past the days of sport compacts and the Fast and Furious stuff, which would have been a fun time to do this as well. But like, really, I think a golden era of performance cars, I was able to kind of encapsulate with, all the reviews I've done. So, but those are some of the top ones. I mean, other ones, Ferrari 458 Spider was, one of my other favorites. But a bunch of the crazy muscle cars and just the cool experiences, the things I've never thought I'd get to do, whether it's jumping a forerunner, never jumped a car before, did that for the first time last year. Whether it's driving on a rally stage in snow, which I got to do here back in early March with Dodge up in New Hampshire there, like all the amazing driving schools. I mean, just so many really cool experiences. All the amazing people I've gotten to talk to, that just have giant influence on the car world, and just a lot of those really cool things are, the press cars are cool, and there's certainly, like I said, plenty of examples there, but I think a lot of the experiences that come with this job and the people you get to meet and stuff. I mean, I think that's arguably even cooler than a few cool weeks with a few cool cars. So there are certainly some downsides to this job too, but there's a lot of upsides, and I'm very, very thankful and fortunate I've been able to do this now. At this point, actually, probably right around now, it will be officially 16 years, or no, not 16. Yeah, well, probably like 14 years of reviews, but been full time now for 11 years, and I'm very thankful for that, and hoping I can keep going, with that here, and even though I do other stuff on the side now, but I'm happy that this is still able to be my main gig. And so yeah, but yeah, thanks for the trip down memory lane. I appreciate the question there. And let me see. Luke says my AC is from 2002. I'll probably upgrade to a new unit next March before the busy hot season. Yeah, makes sense. And Theodore says the new Ferrari is cool. Some people want to complain just to complain. Yeah, certainly. And Linda, thank you so much for sending the gift there. I appreciate that. And B. Mitchell says the easiest way of looking at the 12-cylinder manual is it's more intrinsic to use than paddles. Yeah, which is true, since it seems like nobody has the same up, down, left, right setup. That's true. Yeah, there's a good way of putting it. If it's just like the paddles, but with a familiar setup. Yeah, and he also says it'll be worth it if that clutch can get more longevity from the defined lifetime of a DCT clutch pack. That's true. I'm assuming it'll be a worse lifespan, because if it is truly as dedicated to letting you screw up as it sounds like it is, then that means you can clutch dump. I mean, they've said that like it'll stall. So, those types of things will wear it out faster than a flawlessly driven dual clutch. So I wouldn't expect dual clutch life out of it. But I guess, at least the very least, people who are completely clueless will just hopefully leave it in automatic mode. And then, I think also a lot of the wear and tear that you do see with a manual, even with an experienced driver, is in that grueling stop and go kind of stuff primarily, unless you're just abusing the car. But if you're trying to actually take care of it, I know at least with my manuals, like, I was never smelling clutch in a normal drive. It was, if I'm inching up in traffic that I got stuck in some traffic jam or something like that's where you feel bad for your manual, and your clutch. So, so I think, in those kinds of instances, it'll extend it. So maybe it'll be somewhere in the middle between a regular manual and a dual clutch. But yeah, that's another nice upside of it, I think. Yeah. Not like people that buy those probably worry too much, about maintenance costs, but yeah, valid point for sure. And Luke says, I love some of your savage comments on the Kia Seltos video. Well, I'm glad. I know yeah, the Kia ones especially, people really come out of the woodwork for the Kia stuff. I do need to stop responding to as many of those comments, because it's just it's annoying to read them, but then it's also like it's not a good look for me to be also like arguing with everyone that's being annoying in the comments either. So I have to, and I've done better this year. In past years, I'm open for debate, like the drop of a hat with anybody, but like I've been trying to kind of pick my battles a little bit more here this year and do less of that. But yeah, it's I'm glad that you enjoyed some. It's just it's just the people that just cannot wrap their head around the idea that a car brand can change for better or for worse. It's just like, well, because Nissan made a bad CVT in 2012, that must mean that Nissan will never ever make a good CVT or a good powertrain for the rest of eternity. Like, some people truly think that's the way this works. And same thing with the Kia. Oh, because I had a terrible Kia, blah, blah, blah. A lot of these people, it also comes off like a burned ex kind of thing, where it's like, oh, they broke up with me, so now they suck, and you just like throw your ex under the bus just because they broke up with you, even maybe they had a good reason to, or it was a mutually beneficial thing, or whatever the case is. But like, it's just a lot of these comments read like people who were burned by their ex and now they have to go and tell everyone how crappy their ex is. And it's like, like the one person in that Kia video was like, oh, my Stinger needs to have the engine out for an alternator swap. And it's like, there's lots of cars that need engine out services. Look at all the Subarus. You gotta, tilt the engine to the side just to do spark plugs, let alone like more, involved stuff like an alternator. So like, there's so many instances. There's BMWs where the turbos are situated in annoying spots. And I try to tell him, like, he's mad at his own Stinger, and I'm like, the Stinger's a great car. Like, you picked a great car. Like, just because it's a pain to put the alternator in, get over it, and then keep enjoying your spectacular Kia Stinger, instead of telling everyone that Kias are disposable cars because you can't change your alternator in your driveway. Like, that's a very flimsy argument in my opinion, but like, they're entitled to their opinion. But I think usually the thing that triggers me to respond to the annoying comments is if it's either something that is like a misinformation type of thing, where my choices are to either delete it because I don't want to spread misinformation on my channel, or I, respond to it just so that other people that are reading the comments don't actually think that's true. And I think that's like, I just want to like, make sure that there is equal amounts of information out there so that, it doesn't look one-sided, or, it's a bunch of people just dogpiling on something with completely flimsy arguments. But yeah, it's something I should do less of, though, for sure, because it's, probably not a good look. But I was raised to debate. It's like I should have been on like the debate team. I probably missed an opportunity to be a lawyer or something, because like I'm very much like, I will throw down for a debate at the drop of a hat. So, but yeah, not a great thing for comments. But I'm glad it didn't upset you, Luke. And V Mitchell says, I upgraded to Sync 4 on the 19 Mustang GT, and it's still the usual volume settings. Okay, well, that's good to hear. So yeah, so I don't know what's going on with Luke's Maverick then, because I would assume it should, unless maybe is it just that like if you don't, because maybe in the Fords you just have to turn off the stereo. I think in the Fords, if you leave the stereo on, it'll stay on. Like, whenever you come back into the car and turn it on, it'll assume you want to keep listening. Versus like in the Fiat, I can turn it off. Doesn't matter. Like, it's immediately the second I turn on the car, here, let's play music at you. And I'm like, no, like I turned it off when I left. I want to leave it off until I choose to turn it back on. So yeah. And Nico says that was a common annoyance with early models with auto, with an Android, it would automatically play music from your phone. Maybe Android Automotive is what you're talking about, or Android Auto. Interesting. Yeah, I'm glad CarPlay never did that, because that would be super annoying. And Jack's also asking, what's the longest you've owned a car? Going on 5 years next month with my Mark V Supra. That's awesome. She's treated me well. 8 years and counting with my Genesis Coupe. Not as great. Well, sorry that hasn't been as good. But yeah, the Supra, the fact that you've had that for 5 years is awesome. You've kind of been along for the full ride of Mark V Supra pretty much. That's great. Longest I've owned a car is right around the 5-year mark, actually. So the Legacy GT is technically the longest. So I bought that in the summer of 2007, and I sold it in the like late winter, early spring of 2013. So I guess that was actually, yeah. So yeah, 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, so yeah, almost 6 years I had the Legacy GT. The Bullet was just under that as well, because I got that July of 2018, sold it in April of 2024. So that one, just under the wire there, for almost 6 years too. So We'll see someday if I ever can cross the 6 year mark, but that's been my limit, unfortunately. Not by choice. I mean, with the Legacy, it was by choice, but with the Bullet, I would have kept it. I was planning on keeping that car forever. And I was truly like, I was going to hand it down to my daughter. And, like that was the whole game plan there. Just unfortunately, finances didn't allow that to be, something that made sense. But yeah, I'm actually kind of jealous of people that have like high mileage, long running relationships with a car because it's like that bonding experience. It's very special. And even just with like the 5 years I had the Bullet and the Legacy, like, it very much, imprints on you. And I think that's one of the, and while we're talking about, all the upsides of the press cars and stuff, that's one of the downsides is, you don't have that same bonding experience. And I mean, you still try all kinds of fun stuff. And, you could look at it like someone who, is always jumping from relationship to relationship versus someone who's in a long term thing and, kind of the similar kinds of pros and cons and the thrills of one versus the other. But like, I think it's that kind of mentality of like, I really wish for that like bonding. And, that's why I wanted to put 200,000 miles on the Bullet. That was my goal initially. I wanted to drive the wheels off of it. I wanted to like really just have that be like my car, that just was, the thing that I just had forever, so I want to get to that point. So, but yeah, that's one of the things, with car reviewing that you don't really get the ability to do. Some people still do, whether they are just fortunate enough to have a car or two or several, as fun collector cars on the side that they still have those bonds with. But even then, you don't drive them very much because you're always too busy driving the press cars that they just collect dust, like the Bullet, and even the Fiat. I'm still under 2,000 miles on that thing after a year and a half. So that's just kind of the downside is you're too busy with everything else. You don't get to drive your own car. So, yeah. And let me see. Fazlin says, well, change of plans. I thought I got my girlfriend into Hellcats, but she saw a Volkswagen Beetle and now she's in love with that. I lost. Well, Beetles are very delightful little cars as well, but that is that is quite the switch. I guess bad news for you. So I'm sorry to hear that, but Beetles are fun little cars. There's actually someone in my neighborhood here who's got a manual black Beetle of this current or the most recent generation. It's got a little exhaust on it, and they're cool little cars. I always thought it's essentially a coupe GTI for the turbo versions in some cases. I mean, not quite exactly that, but the turbo ones were punchy. You can get them with a manual, you can get them with a convertible. It was really fun. I don't know what it was, probably 7 or 8 years ago now. I reviewed the last generation Beetle, and I was like, they're great cars. I really love them. If you can, shake off the stigma and all that, like it's a cool little car in my opinion. It's a two-door, it's sporty, it's quick, if you look at it objectively, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just the stigma of the Beetle thing that kind of hurts it. And let me see. Ranking Up says, hello, Mr. Maran, longtime fan and subscriber. Hope you had a good 4th. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate that. And thanks so much for your support all this time, however long it's been. That's what keeps the channel going, is those of you who keep turning up to watch the latest thing and check out the newest cars. That's what keeps it going. So thank you so much. And Blacked Out 5.0 fan says, hi, Matt. I hope I'm not being annoying for wanting a brand new keyed ignition due to the issues I've had with push button start. Yeah, everyone likes something different. I always take note of your comments there about the keyed ignitions. It is getting more and more rare. Less and less cars every year offering that. I'm actually trying to think of what is a keyed ignition these days. I feel like there's maybe the base Chevy Trax offers it. I'm sure you probably know better than I do. You're probably keeping tabs on that. But there's not a whole lot left. More and more cars doing push button start as standard, and all that. So yeah. Anyway, thanks for stopping by. And Darnell says, hope all is well with you and the family for the 4th of July, sir. Absolutely. Hope things have been good with you too. Hope you had a good weekend, Darnell. Thanks for stopping by too. And Lancelot says to ignore the trolls. It's great advice. It's it's easier said than done sometimes, at least for me. I've gotten better at kind of rolling my eyes at some of them and moving on, but um, I think the thing too with reviews or anyone who does any videos that are very heavily researched, it's like you put a lot of time into getting stuff right. And I will be the first to admit when something's wrong, and you'll see it in my comments. If someone says, actually, Matt, you got this wrong, you know, this is actually what it does or what it uses or whatever the case is, I will heart those comments. I'll upvote those comments and say, thank you for the correction. I am absolutely down to be corrected when I screw something up. And I love that because again, I want to give correct information. So I love that. But, whenever people are like, do your homework, blah, blah, and it's like something that I know is wrong, I'm like, no, I did all this research and I spent all this time obsessing over making sure that I got this right. And then people still are acting like I'm an idiot. And it's just like, those are the ones that are harder to pass up because I'm like, listen here, I did the research. You're wrong. Here's the proof. Like, get off my back kind of thing. But I know even those, I should just let them live in their lands of delusion, where many people are very happily living these days. And that's probably the better way to do things. But B. Mitchell says, where I was going with the DCT longevity is that at a stoplight, a regular DCT gets the most wear. But if a manual can truly put the pack into neutral, that'll pay the rent on it. Gotcha. I thought newer DCTs were better with the red light stuff. Because I could have sworn there would have been, I mean, obviously they still inch up, but I think it has to do with brake pedal pressure. And as long as you have brake pedal pressure at a stop, I didn't think they were engaged, but I'm not an expert on that. So maybe you have a better read on what that's like here. I knew some of the older ones were problematic, and some of them, I remember in the past, you actually had to put them in neutral yourself to save some of them. Like I know some of the earlier Ferrari dual clutch stuff, actually, the common practice was, okay, come up to a red light, you pull both paddles, put it in a neutral, because otherwise, you're going to burn out that dual clutch a lot more, or even I think some of those were single clutch, automated manuals. But I thought these days that was better, but I could be wrong. Jacob said, or maybe it is Jacob, just spelled differently. He says, been following you since 2018. You and your channel are a stable in any automotive enthusiast hearts. I dream to review like you one day. Well, I hope you can make that dream a reality. These days, it's easier than ever. People are more aware of car reviews in general, and as long as you've got a phone in your pocket, they're all good enough these days. You've got a good enough camera. Everyone can edit these days. It's a pretty simple thing to teach yourself. It's a lower bar of entry than it ever has been, and I think that's great because it opens up the opportunity. That's how I got into this. Is YouTube. Otherwise, I didn't have a writing degree. A magazine wouldn't have hired me back when I started doing this in 2012. It's I'm the whole reason why this channel is here is because of that lowered barrier of entry, which I'm a case where I think hopefully it's benefited society, but I think that lower bar certainly there's some things that that has brought that are not great, but like I think one of the great things is you can go to a car dealer and say, hey, I'm doing car reviews, do you mind if I do? And the easy thing now is a lot of these popular reviews, they're not even driving anymore. It's just standing in a parking lot and showing all the features and stuff. And so something like that, if the dealer doesn't even need to let you drive it, you can just show up with a camera and say, hey, can I give you some free publicity? Even if it's only going out to 20 viewers, that's 20 viewers they wouldn't have gotten. It doesn't cost them anything. It doesn't bother anything. Typically, it makes it a lot easier to start. The problem is, breaking through now because there's so much competition because once again, everyone with a phone in their pocket can do it. But if you can kind of offer something that's fresh, something that's unique, or just have a really great personality or really great looks, or both, that can certainly help your case too. But I think it's, I was very fortunate with when I got into it because there wasn't a lot of competition. And if I had to start all over again now, I doubt I'd be able to break through, honestly, because it's very, very tough. So, it's worth trying if you got, if you have time on the side, give it a whirl and see what happens. Cause you might truly have that personality that people, want to watch more of, and are able to do it in a really compelling way. And I think that's why there's been all kinds of newcomers just in the past few years that have really shot up and have really made a name for themselves in a great way. And let me see here. Nico says Kia, too bad it's a Kia. Ford for life. It should have been called July Ford. Yeah, Kias are great. I will die on that hill. Kias are great. They've really turned themselves around, and it's a shame that stigma, just like the Nissan CVT stuff, is going to haunt them for a long time, and it's unfair. They have to give 110% to get people to notice them. Whenever there's other companies that are phoning it in with other stuff, and they still get sales on mediocre products. It's kind of a shame. But at least, I mean, Kia, they are the fastest growing brand actually currently this year, I think. And that's been the case. I mean, they keep setting sales records. They keep outdoing themselves, in that area. So people are starting to figure out, like, these are good cars. This is the best warranty in the industry. This is some of the best tech in the industry. This is, exciting styling. Some of the most bang for buck, and people are just, they're overpaying the premium, paying the Toyota tax, paying the Honda tax, and they're more open-minded, I think, than they were in the past with that, or just more aware. And so, yeah, it's good to see. And let me see. Chris says, we're not hearing anything on the new Camaro. I don't think GM is proud of it. No, it's just that they're not ready to talk about it yet. I mean, none of the stuff we have is even official. The last official thing GM said about Camaro was that the story isn't over for it. That was basically it, and that's what they said whenever it went out of production in 2024. So, just because there's silence about a product does not mean they're not proud of it, I don't think. I mean, because I think they're very proud of what they're doing with the Cadillac, the new CT5 or whatever, because it's the Alpha platform. How can you not be proud of the Alpha platform? Like, literally anything you put on the Alpha platform is going to be fantastic, in my opinion. So I think it's going to be great. Even if it's a four-door, it's going to be great. For the Camaro, and there's going to be the Buick on it. I would not misinterpret silence about future product plans as any kind of representation of how a company feels about a product. Because I can guarantee you, if they were not proud of it, if they did not think it was worth doing, they would cancel it. So I think that, it's just a matter of time, like all these things where, we're all wanting all the info right now, and I totally get that. But, it takes time to cook stuff well. And I think, and this is what you see with especially the Japanese. I mean, they take forever to develop cars, but they do a very good job doing it so that when it finally does arrive, it's good. And so I think that it just takes time, but I think it's going to be good. We'll see, how long it lasts, but I'm excited for when it does debut and see, how the market and how regulations treat it, after the first couple of years here. But General Chicken, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, hey, Matt, I'm sadly really crushing hard on the 12-cylinder Manuel. Do you think they will push past $1 million on the secondhand market? I don't know. I mean, I thought that it was going to be like a home run, but then I'm seeing stuff online. A bunch of people are mad about it. So, I mean, my first reaction to that is like, well, like, better odds of it actually not going to $1 million in the secondhand market. And that's good news for me if I ever someday have the dumb luck of finally being able to afford something like that. But yeah, I don't know though. I mean, if you are someone who's in that market, I'd say, if you don't have the ability to get to order it, new from Ferrari, there will probably be some at first, it's marked up. I just don't know. I would assume the fact it's limited production, though, people, I mean, especially not like, I don't know, not like saying like all Ferrari fans are probably going to be into this, but like, I think it's close enough. There may be some people that, well, I mean, with Ferrari, I mean, if you haven't already signed up for it, like, you're not getting it, because it's already super limited production. I think anyone who's offered it is going to just take it and they will flip it. Whether they go to $1 million, though, I don't know how much the markup's going to be on them, on the secondhand market. But I would assume, since it's only 1,500 cars, that it's going to be, probably at least a couple hundred grand extra. And if they're already starting over 5 before you do all the tailor-made stuff, which Ferrari is going to heavily suggest you do, even on the new market, I think it probably won't be super hard to get one close to that anyway. If you go really crazy on the options. So I'm sure some will eclipse that on the secondhand market. It just comes down to, are people actually excited about it beyond just, staying in Ferrari's good graces? But I truly think people are excited about it. But I think, the secondhand market might also get influenced by how it actually drives. Obviously, again, those first buyers, they don't care. They're just buying it blindly. But for the secondhand market, I think if the reviews say, wow, this is terrible, this is like first gen dual clutch kind of, weird, awkward integration of this, if it's bad, then maybe that'll crush values a little bit. But, I think that it's going to be good. And I think that it's, probably get close to $1 million mark, if not passing it eventually. But it also, I think, is going to come down to how Ferrari plays it. Because like I said in my rant, like they have the tech, and assuming people actually do enjoy it and do buy it with their own free will, I think it would make sense to put it in everything. And if it gets less special, then that could kind of bring those prices down a little bit. But I think anything with a V12 in it from Ferrari, though, these days is pretty elevated, because I think people really savor that, the fact that it's not hybridized, the fact that because even in all the Lambos, it's hybridized now, and I think people are really savoring that pure V12 experience and the Ferrari. So I think that whether you're talking per Sangwe, which SUV you'd think would give people the ick, those things are still the nice ones are over 500 grand still even for that. So I mean, and that's a premium, I think, from what they typically sell for. So I think that it'll probably be pretty elevated for all the V12s. Especially now seeing the Luce and stuff, there might be some Ferrari fans that are clutching their pearls and thinking this is like one of the last good things or something, even though I don't think it is. But like, I think, you might get some of that that influences things too a little bit. I don't know. But yeah, thank you so much for the super chat. And if you are fortunate enough to even consider one of these on the secondhand market, I'm extremely jealous, and good for you. Please let us know if you get one and how amazing it is if you ever do. And because I can live vicariously through you. But let me see here. Where were we with the other comments? I'm going to get a drink here, even though we didn't mention GR Corolla. Cheers. I'm going to have a sip of coffee here. So where are we? Oh, actually, we weren't too far behind here. Lancewell says the Ford Power Shift transmission is the best DCT ever. Just kidding. Right. Yeah, that's definitely probably the worst for sure. And Tumbling Mustard, thanks so much for stopping by. He says, I drive a manual. If I had an option to switch over to an auto in traffic, I'd take it. Yeah. And I think, maybe they don't want to admit it, but I think that most enthusiasts that drive manuals, especially daily drivers, would totally take that too. I think they absolutely would. Even if it means you don't have a clutch cable anymore or something. Yeah, like, I don't know. I think it's just like, why? There's all kinds of wonderful perks to a manual. I don't think any manual purist says, oh, I love inching up in traffic in a manual. I don't think there's a single person that actually enjoys that. And that's what it gets rid of. So again, it's all upside to me. You're not losing anything. And as long as the connection is well done with the dual clutch, then you're truly not giving up any engagement, and where it matters. You're just getting rid of the bad stuff. I don't know. Yeah, it seems like that would be pretty universally praised. But, we'll have to see. Maybe the reviews will come out and it'll be completely terrible. In which case, I guess we have some more work to do until we get to that point. But once we get to that point of actually doing that well, it's gonna be amazing, I think. And let me see. So B. Mitchell says, I've owned my 62 Corvair Monza convertible longer than Matt's been alive, November of 89. On the other hand, I flipped a 79 Lincoln Town Car in 3 days. Wow, that's an impressive turnaround time. I'm sure the title work people were really thrilled with that. That must have been a headache too, as far as they didn't even probably process the one, and then unless maybe it was cashed. But even still, probably takes a little bit of time, right, to switch over title stuff. Anyway, But that's cool. You've had that Corvair for so long. That's great. Um, and Fazlin says that kind of hit hard, high mileage and car bonding. I'm hoping and praying my dream car lasts for years on years. Yeah, I mean that's one of the reasons why a lot of people do really obsess over getting something super reliable or just wanting something that just treats them well because you want to have that good experience. No one wants to have a bad car experience, and people want to have that. A lot of people just they do want to drive a car into the ground. Some people like flipping every couple of years, but like I think the average age of a car on the road right now, depending on who you ask, I've been seeing multiple numbers now. I thought it was 12.6 years, but there's others that are quoting higher than that now. I don't know, but you know, over a decade is the average age of a car on the road. Doesn't mean they've owned it that long, but like a lot of people do really keep their cars a good long while, especially these days with how expensive they are. Um, and Jacob says, "What tips do you have for someone wanting to start in the automotive journalism world? My only marketable feature is I'm super tall. Do you think press cars ruin the spark/fun of new car experiences?" So as far as tips, I'd run with the thing that makes you unique, which is super tall. I think there was like tall guy car reviews was like I haven't seen their stuff in forever, but a long time ago they were doing reviews that were kind of tailored to tall people, and I think that's a very good niche. That's with anything with YouTube, niche down. As much as that might sound counterintuitive, like, oh, I need to like, have as wide of a net to cast as possible. That's generic and that will never punch through. The idea is start with a super specific niche. And if you do find success, then you start branching out or you start trying to expand the appeal. But you got to get in first with a core audience. And once you establish that, then you have those other problems for another day. But like 100%, like, and try and do something in your channel name that broadcasts like, hey, this is for people that are super tall. And yes, you're not going to get people like me that are 5'9" because I mean, aside from maybe the curiosity thing, which is I think the other component you have going for you, especially if you're going short form for some of the stuff. I think long form to say, how do I fit in this? And really, kind of give a good, assessment of that. I think especially could be great, especially with new cars where that hasn't been already established. If it's a brand new generation like this Kia Seltos I just did, it's actually a little bit shorter than the last generation, but it's more boxy. And I felt like I had a ton of headroom. But that could be like you going to a Kia dealer and you don't even need to drive it. Go to a Kia dealer, say, hey, if you're tall and you fit in the old Seltos, do you fit the new one or something like that? And really just do those things. That could be great short form content, especially, but also like depending on how super tall you are, that could be kind of the curiosity stuff as well, where people will say, wow, like, and you could even make it a funny thing of like, how badly do you fit in a Miata? How badly do you fit in a GR86? And just have fun with it if that's something you're comfortable with. But like really, yeah, that's your unique thing. You got to go 100% into that unique thing. I think that's actually a good unique thing too, because I think there actually are quite a lot of tall people, and even if everyone's not 7 feet tall or however tall you are, it can be still if you say, "Hey, I fit and I'm 7 feet tall," then anyone who's 6'5" is like, "Oh, maybe I won't fit in this." Well, no, I'll fit in this, or whatever the case is. So I think like that's a great niche, and I honestly don't think there's a lot of people. I mean, even all my reviewer friends that I know and other people that I've been around that I don't call friends or acquaintances, but like most car reviewers, there's a couple really tall ones. If you read articles, there's like Brian Armstead. He's really tall. He's actually also in like the Northern Virginia area. Gets press cars from the same fleet as me. He's really tall. I think he's like maybe 6'7", something like that. But he actually doesn't usually lean into that much. Maybe he'll make a mention of it. He doesn't do a whole lot of content anymore anyway. But like, I think especially for short form and for social stuff, that's really, yeah, that's a huge perk. So I'd totally run with that because that's something I'm a very generic height. I've got no marketable stuff there. So that's something where you could set yourself apart from others. As far as how or do press cars ruin the spark or the fun of new car experiences? I don't think they do. Like, it's still really exciting whether you're talking like, purchasing a new car, like we got the Lyric last year, or I got the Fiat, like, whenever it's your own car, it's a whole different kind of thing. And then if we're just talking like experiencing like the newest technology or the newest cars, I always have a natural curiosity. And even if it's a Kia Seltos, which maybe some people would be like, why are you bothering with that when you can go drive, someone's Mustang they offered you or whatever? Like, but like I have a genuine curiosity. What is that car like to drive? That car that I saw passing by the other day. Like, I wonder what that's like. And like I've always just wanted to kind of, I don't know, climb every mountain in that way or whatever. I like kind of checking the box of like, okay, now I know what that's like. Okay, now I know what this is like. And you can now, after doing almost 1,000 reviews, I can piece together a pretty good idea of what something is like to drive already. But it's just kind of fun, especially with the new stuff, especially to be like, how does this drive? Did they mess this up? Is there something weird about it? Is it flawless? And you still do get surprised a lot. And like for example, the Subaru Uncharted, same stuff as the Toyota electrics, but like the throttle response is weird in the Uncharted. I'm like, oh, that's a plot twist. I didn't think I'd have a problem with this, and now it's actually like a little bit annoying. Or like the Rav4. So I right now have the GR Sport Rav4 plug-in hybrid here, and I drove it on the media drive, and we were on roads that were not really great for reviewing anything sporty. I mean, it was a RAV4 launch, so that makes sense, but there was the GR Sport version there. And so driving it back to back with the other ones, I'm like, okay, this feels nicer, but it's not like that great. But then I had a limited, RAV4 for a week, a month or two ago. Very nice. But then in the GR Sport, I'm like, holy crap, this is actually really good. And I didn't get that on the first drive. And so even that car, a car I'd already driven once before, really surprised me. And you'll see, not to spoil it, but that'll be coming out here later this week. So like that, I'm like, wow, like this is a surprise. And those surprises are what keep me engaged. That's one of the things that really, keeps that curiosity motor running is I'm like, wow, well, that surprised me. This surprised me in a bad way, or this surprised me in a good way. And like that just never gets old for me to always be discovering new things. And it's fun. If you're into cars, it's just fun to try out new stuff, in my opinion. And so like that's one of the real fun perks of this for sure. Instead of wondering what something's like, you can find out and enjoy that. So yeah, great questions, Jacob. I appreciate them. And Goth Rocker says, Matt, are you having bad storms out your way? Very bad over here. I'm sorry to hear that it's bad. We had a decent amount of rain earlier this evening, but wasn't terrible. Yesterday, we had some pretty intense winds. A tree actually knocked over onto a road and blocked a road for a little bit yesterday. And yeah, some people had some power out, but thankfully it wasn't too bad here. I know some other places it was a lot worse. So I hope everything stays good for you there, Goth Rocker. But yeah, thankfully it's been fairly mild here. We're going to be getting a bunch of thunderstorms here this week, so fingers crossed everything stays mild. But yeah, I'm at least happy that these storms are bringing some cooler temperatures, so that's a welcome change. And Lancelot says F-150 XL, I think, still have a switchblade key. You're right, yes, because I even did the STX version, and that still had the switchblade key. The Lobo still has switchblade. So F-150 and a lot of those older, or some of those cheaper trucks, they still are happy to do that, and people probably like it that way. And B Mitchell saying, yeah, F-150 base to Lobo has the key. Yeah. So you're right there with me. Appreciate that. And he says that's one of the things he likes about him too. That's cool. And Luke says Maverick XL, Ranger XL, and XLT still have them. Okay. Yeah. And Jacob says, what is a feature you wish modern cars would bring back? Manual transmission excluded. I'm trying to think of something I'd like to see brought back. I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's really anything I can think of. Like, I think, modern cars have, all the stuff the old stuff had as well. Maybe in a different form or something like that. But yeah, I can't think of anything that I wish was brought back. I mean, I think that, just in general, the thing which I'm happy to see with the Slate is, the decontenting of cars. I wish there was more of that, and there was an option to not have, a radio, or to, make things more bare bones. Because, when you look at like cheap starting prices of cars 30 years ago or something, like air conditioning was an option, or, an automatic was an expensive option that sometimes cost, 10 to 30% of the car's price. And so I think there's some of that stuff that, like, because we're in this affordability crisis, where cars are just so expensive, like, I wish more companies had the bravery to not only just do that kind of stuff, but even just to build the cheap trims. They don't want to, because the profit's all in the top stuff. The more crap you add to a car, that each one of those pieces of crap has profit margin, and so, like, that's why they do it. And even I think it was, who was it that just a GM, actually, I think, just reported in their earnings or whatever, that they sold less cars, but their profit is up. And everyone figured this out during COVID times, that, hey, we can stop doing discounts if we produce less. If we have a supply crunch, all of a sudden profitability goes through the roof. And so I think that, some companies can't go to the extreme with that, but then you have other companies like Jaguar who is going to the extreme with that. And they're saying, okay, we tried to do the mass production volume angle and try and be better than BMW and stuff. That didn't work. So what do? You make more money selling 1,000 cars a year that have $100,000 profit margin on them, or whatever it ends up being, versus, a $5,000 profit margin. You're trying to churn out, 100,000 units a year, whatever the case is. It's just, and that's why I think the Jag plan is actually very solid. That's not a car for everyone. That is a car for the select few, and a very specific amount and type of the select few. It's not for, being the good to be bad thing like the old Jags. That's not who they're going for. They're going for the artsy, high end, posh kind of, buyer. And that's why the marketing is the way it is. That's why the car looks the way that it does. That's why it's electric, that all that stuff, like, it all adds up and all makes sense. So, like, I think that, the volume thing just is a hard thing to kind of justify sometimes. So I think, getting back though, I think that, like, I wish we'd see roll up windows again. I wish we'd see power locks and all those kinds of things. Like, being like, do we need to have these things? And, I don't know how much that stuff really changes the bottom line as far as lowering the price tag and the starting price. But I think that decontenting could be a nice thing to do for some of these cars, just to bring back affordability. And let me see here. So Garth Walker says, my Lincoln does not blast the music when it connects back to my phone. No issue at all. But my Lincoln Continental is the older sync system. Yeah, no, it sounds like the sync systems still don't do that. So yeah, I don't know what's going on with Luke's. Hopefully it it stops doing it, or he finds a way to maybe stop that behavior in his. But Lancelot says, the Kenwood in my truck will blast the music when my phone is connected unless I pause it before I turn it off. Okay, yeah, in a lot of vehicles, yeah, they will resume, and that makes sense to me a little bit more, at least. But, like, I think the thing that bothers me is when you turn the radio off before you left the car, and then it still, decides to automatically turn itself on. And B. Mitchell says, oddly, my most DCT experience is with Aston Martins. They were a partner with my magazine at Monterey in the mid 2010s. Very nice. And back then, if we were stuck in traffic, we were told to knock it into neutral. Yeah, so that was another one, same kind of deal. Yeah, so that's definitely the old DCT stuff. I think that's largely been fixed, but I don't know. That would be a good question, even for, like, the Golf R owners and the GTI, all those GTI owners that are driving around. I think they have pretty good durability and longevity with those, but I could be wrong. No, I haven't heard of any issues really with. I think people really like those, and I think they're pretty durable. I don't know. And Luke says, the longest I've owned a vehicle has been 2 years and 4 months. I get bored quickly, with which I'm trying to change and have better self-control. Well, I mean, I think it's just personality types. I mean, kind of the same as all kinds of stuff. Some people like living different places every few years. Some people like being in different relationships every few years. Like, everyone's different, so I don't think there's a wrong answer. If that's what works for you, I think that's great. I think I'm wired to want that kind of bond with a car, probably because I had that, before I started reviewing cars. But, like, some people are just not wired that way, and there's nothing wrong with that either, I don't think. But so don't feel bad, Luke. Keep flipping every couple of years if that, and a lot of people, it's also like, again, I think I also am kind of a screwed up mentality because for me, I'm spoiled with getting to try new stuff all the time. But I think, if you don't have obviously that luxury that I have, like a lot of people, they want to try something new. They're the same way I want to try something new every week. They want to try something new every year or two at least, and cross that off and say, okay, well, I haven't had a Corvette yet. I haven't, I've never tried a V8 before. I've never had a truck before, or whatever. You want to experience different parts of the automotive world. I'm actually one of the clients I did a car consulting thing with here, which I still do, by the way. Shameless plug, maranmotoring.com. But one of the clients I was working with this year, like that was something for them. Like they were like, okay, I'm really happy with my current car, but I'm ready for something new. I want to try something different. I crossed that bridge. I checked that box, and now I want to try this other kind of sports car. I want to try this other type of thing, and I think that's, especially an enthusiast. You see all the cool reviews of whatever, this, that, or the other. Like you want to try those things for yourself. So if you have the money to do it, absolutely, flipping cars is totally. I completely understand that as someone who does it every week. And Nico says, glad Kias are selling. I need little go-karts to bully. Oh, you're a bully. Oh man, you're making it even harder for me to like you, Nico. First street racing, now bullying. Oh man, no, but Kias, hopefully they stay out of the left lane for you so you can go crazy, and they'll just keep on motoring along there reliably and comfortably, despite what people think. Jimmy says, if I went electric, what should I get? Completely depends on what you're looking for, Jimmy. I have no idea if you want an SUV, if you want a sedan. I have a million qualifying questions I could ask. But speaking of, again, the car consulting, if you truly don't really know which direction to head in, I'm happy to help you with that. You can also send some more context in a follow-up comment as well, or send me an email or whatever. But if you want to have a one-on-one video call, we can kind of go through a lot of those questions and help you to narrow it down for yourself, save you a lot of time. I'm happy to do that too. But let me see. Vishal says the Camry Apex seems interesting. I didn't get a chance to watch your video on that, but is there speculation on powertrain for it? I imagine it'd be the 2.4 T hybrid. No, I think the speculation is just like the Corolla Apex, is it's going to be an untouched engine. And even the Camry concept car they had at SEMA, which was called a Camry GTS, that one had no engine modifications. It did have an exhaust, but other than that, it was completely stock. So Apex is going to be handling goodies slightly, and then slightly sportier look, and that's going to probably be the extent of it. They could change the recipe, but if we're sticking to the recipe they used for Corolla, that's what it'll be. Lowered suspension, sportier springs, sway bars, wheels, summer tire option, and then some aero bits, and that's probably going to be it. But I think that on its own, could very much be a valuable stopgap and a kind of a mid-grade point before a full-blown, GR Sport version comes down the road, or even maybe possibly a full GR. Let me see. One Car Fast is asking, or maybe just talking new Toyota MR2. No info on that. It's going to probably be a few years. There's been recent reports that now it's coming sooner. I don't buy that. I don't think it's coming very soon at all. I think Toyota basically told us it'll be the early 2030s. Anyone who tells you anytime before the early 2030s, it's clickbait for the most part, in my opinion. I mean, I could be wrong. I'd love to see an MR2 come out next year, but there's been no spy shots. They still were just running a GR Yaris with a mid-engine placement to try and figure out how to tune anything with a mid-engine. And according to the reports, they're struggling with even that. So if the Mule is still rough and we don't have any, I mean, even if you saw a production bodywork MR2 running around with camo, oftentimes with Japanese sports cars, they do that for years. I mean, I remember, whether we're talking R35 GTR, the GR86, or any of these things, they run these things for years, typically, or at least a year before you see anything start to show up for Japan. And then, give it another 6 months to finally show up here and everything else. So, like, going to be a long time for MR2. So I think, Supra's gone away now. GR86 sounds like it's going to probably get a little bit of a refresh here, and then that's going to probably go away. And I don't know if we'll ever see anything again from that kind of thing, but I think, we'll have MR2, we're going to have Celica, the two that we know. And that we know Supra, they say will return again someday, but I think that's also going to be a 2030 plus kind of thing. So they always have something cooking, and they got, cool stuff coming, but it's going to be a while for MR2, I think. And Jack saying, will the M2 X Drive have crazy markups? I mean, there's always going to be opportunistic dealers for anything, especially when you're talking about expensive stuff where they know people typically have some money to burn. So, my advice for anyone that's trying to navigate around markups, you got to do a road trip. There are dealers that are not crappy, and they're not trying to, sucker punch everyone that's excited about something, and has a few bucks to spend. So, I would just get on the phone, start calling, start with your local stuff, and keep expanding your search radius out as far as you possibly can. If you don't have the luxury of spending the time to do a road trip home, ship it. As long as you can get the deal done, I think, I'd rather pay a trucker $1,000 than put it in the pocket of the dealer. A trucker is actually working hard for his money. The salesman typically is not. So that's me. Everyone's different, but do not pay a markup. In my opinion, if everyone stopped paying markups, then there would never be markups, because it's a simple supply and demand thing. The only reason they exist is because people pay them. And speaking of that actually jogs my memory. One of the other cars I saw this weekend was a Prelude, second Prelude I've seen now. And it was in Boost Blue, which is going the other way on the highway. So I wasn't able to see how elderly the person was driving it, because it seems like that is going to be the buying demographic for this. But it was, I saw another Prelude, but that's a car that I think they're hopefully going to drop markups pretty quickly, because I think they're starting to kind of reach the limits of what, of the blank check buyers, because their goal was 4,000 units a year. And we're at the halfway mark for the year here. And they've sold, I think, like 1,750 or something. So they're on pace to maybe do 3,500, assuming they keep up with the, slightly higher demand they've had of the past 6 months. Now, if they drop those markups, and the dealers, then maybe that'll actually help Honda to hit that goal. But if, all the blank check buyers have already bought theirs, and now you have to kind of convince actual people that aren't writing blank checks, hey, you should pay an extra, $10,000 basically for a Coupe Civic S or Coupe, Civic Hybrid. I think that's where they're going to find a brick wall pretty quick for the demand of that car. So, like anything, just give it enough time, you'll start to get discounts, and you'll start to get that, because M2 X Drive is not a limited production thing. If we're talking CS, it's going to be probably markups forever. But with an X Drive one, I would assume that it's going to come down to reality pretty quickly after the first few people that have to puff up their chests and say they got the first one. Once they're out of the way, I think hopefully it will calm down. But if you're trying to circumvent that, and you want to have, you don't want to wait and miss out on prime driving season here, get on the phone, expand your search radius. Every single car I've bought in the past, aside from the Lyric, because we're fortunate enough to get a good deal from our local dealer and have a partnership with them now. But every other car, to get a good deal, I had to go out of state. The Bullet, I went to Ohio. All the other Mustangs. The Mustang before that, I went to Chicago for. I'm in Pittsburgh. The Mustang before that was in Uniontown, PA. So that was in the state, but that's also like an hour and a half away. And the EcoBoost was in Ohio. The Mach-E was in Ohio. The Mini was local. BRZ was local. And so, it was mostly just the Mustangs where I had to go out of state for every single one of them to get a good deal, because especially those Ford dealers, they love to try and screw people as best they can, typically. But it's supply and demand, they say, and it's true. Again, if people quit paying them, they'd go away. But best of luck. They're trying to navigate that. And Luke says, let's turn onto this back road and see how it does. Doug scored TFL Ike Gauntlet. As far as those unique things, that I think set some of us apart. So that's it's great to come up with something like that too for Jacob, who was asking about how to set yourself apart there. And Nicholas says, hope everyone had a good 4th. Hope you had a good 4th too, Nicholas. Thanks for stopping by here. And Blacked Out is asking about the key to ignition there. Or thanks for for letting them know about that, B. Mitchell and Luke. And Nicholas says, hey, man, I hope you get a Z Nismo manual to review. I'll definitely consider one if I'm ever ready to move on from the 86. Yeah, I hope that I do get one here. It's seeming like that's not going to happen until the fall at this point, based on what I know about the press fleets and everything I have scheduled currently through the end of the summer here. That'll be a fall thing. If they actually get it out quickly enough, it might have to wait till the spring. We'll have to see. I don't want it to be that way, but they're kind of slow sometimes. So we'll see what happens. But I very much want that car to redeem itself because, yeah, the last C Nismo just not a good experience for me. So hopefully it'll be good. And yeah, I'm hoping I can get that here this year. We'll see what happens. And Goth Rocker says, my company vehicle is a Ford F-350 and has the switchblade key you put into the ignition. Okay, nice. Yeah, so I guess even some of the bigger ones still do that. That's cool. And Jacob says, you'll have to come to Oklahoma someday so I can meet you. If I ever head northeast, I'll have to holler at you. What's a social platform you utilize the most? I mean, I guess Instagram, it's probably one of my least favorite ones, but that's probably the one that I'm on the most. Because yeah, Facebook, I'm not great with checking messages and stuff on there. Every once in a while I stop in, but the Facebook crowd, I mean, people that send messages are very nice, but just I don't read Facebook comments as much because that's a whole different demographic typically and not the most fun to go into those comment sections. But yeah, so it definitely just, yeah, send me an Instagram thing if you're ever in the Northeast here. But yeah, I'm always, it's one of those things I'd love to do more meetups and stuff. Usually it just comes down to a time thing. You know, I'm traveling all over the country for a lot of these media drives, but even when I'm in a different place and I know there's people there that would love to grab a beer with me and I'd love to grab a beer with them, you know, it's just like I'm always just too jam-packed with the schedule. And it's like I'm truly working like every minute that I have free, as long as I'm not spending time with family. Like, you know, I'm always working. So that's kind of the only thing that's limiting me a little bit. But definitely, if you're in the Northeast here, let me know, and I'll see if I can get the stars to align there. But thanks so much for being a fan all these years, so I appreciate it. And he also says, been a FedEx manager for 2 years, so let me know if you want to review a FedEx truck. Well, I mean, some of them, I don't know if you guys have any of the Bright Drop ones in Oklahoma. I'm sure that's more of a coastal thing where they started rolling those out before they discontinued the Bright Drop stuff from GM. But seems like those were kind of cool. And it seems like people are starting to like buy some of those already, like secondhand, and like upfit those as like camper vans and stuff, which is kind of cool. I came across a reel or something on that not too long ago. So yeah, but those FedEx trucks, I hope that someday they give you guys a better truck like the Rivian trucks that Amazon has now, because those seem much nicer and safer and more comfortable and all that. But yeah, thanks for doing the hard work of getting those packages there. My dad actually worked for FedEx for his entire life. He was in customer service for them, but he was with them before they were even FedEx, because he worked for FedEx Ground, which used to be called RPS. If anyone is old, remembers Roadway Package System, that was RPS, and then they got bought out and turned into FedEx Ground. But yeah, so deep ties to FedEx. Actually, I have a little like FedEx Hot Wheels truck that I got that has little packages in the back from a Bring Your Kid to Work day back in the 90s or whatever that I still have, and my daughter still plays with it, so she's still driving a little FedEx truck there. And Luke says, my family always gives me a hard time. What was wrong with your other car? Oh, another car. Oh, as far as, yeah, you flipping cars all the time. You know, just tell them everyone likes different things. You know, some people like trying new food things all the time, or new beers, or take your pick. And you can say the same rebuttal to them. You know, what was wrong with the other stuff you were having to eat? Why don't you stick with that? Or, you know, why didn't you stick with that one beer? You couldn't stay loyal to that. You had to switch to other stuff or try other stuff. You know, it's the same kind of thing. I think you want to taste different things, try different things. So don't let anyone give you crap, Luke. I get it. And Jacob says, have you seen any new Preludes in the Wild? All right, well, there we go. So yeah, 2 for me. I think a couple others here have said they've seen like 1, I think, so far. I remember you discussing how expensive they are. I feel like they missed the goal. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, we're on the same page there, Jacob. Yeah. And Luke says, I hope Celica doesn't do a Prius coupe for 42 grand. Prelude, cough. Yeah, I I would like to think that Toyota has better sense than that. I think they understand more so than Honda does, like the high expectations whenever they bring back stuff like this. And I mean, their execution might still be controversial to some people, but I think that packaging wise, they at least get that component of it right. And the performance levels they get right. Even if you didn't like the way Super was done, for example, like it had, the same recipe, the same formula of, great inline six, rear wheel drive, two-door coupe, that kind of stuff. I think they don't screw up. So, I mean, and based on what we saw, the Celica prototype that was running around the rally car version, it seems like it's going to be a two-door. It seems like some people are saying it could be based on GR Yaris, unless that's just the mule they're using, but it seems like it'll probably be a two-door and hopefully be, a great performer. So I think they also, the way they trademarked it, I'm pretty sure they trademarked GR Celica. I don't even know if they've trademarked regular Celica, which means they might even go too extreme, which is kind of the other thing that makes me nervous is like, if they make it exclusively a GR product, then you have, the GR Corolla levels of build quality, which means it's hand built in Japan up until recently, where now some of the GR Corollas are built, cheers, I guess, some of the GR Corollas are built in the UK now, but like it's a hand built engine. It's not a regular Corolla with a build process. It's very much, a higher quality Corolla in general. So if they're doing that with Celica, that means lower production volumes, and that means, bigger money. And it also means it's not going to be a mass produced kind of thing. And that means that, unless you're going hardcore GR, like you're not going to want a Celica, and I think the reason why Celica, like a lot of these things, people miss the mark. I think Camaro did the same thing. Like, oh, we're just going to focus on the enthusiasts. It's like the enthusiasts buy a tiny sliver of what makes those cars a commercial success. It's the regular people that just want a cool looking two-door that make those a success. And Prelude's kind of proving this to us right now, that you don't need to have crazy performance, to sell a two-door. Some people just actually still like that body style, and so I think if Celica is exclusively GR, then it's going to be expensive, it's going to be super high performance, and that turns off people that maybe would be prospective cross shoppers with Prelude or something that just, are fine with 200 horsepower or something. I think that's, whether we're talking Challengers, where a large majority of those have the Pentastar V6, or you're talking, some of the sport compacts or whatever, like, a lot of them just have the regular engine and nothing special. And so I think and even Dodge, I think Dodge is still forgetting their own lesson, or they're just being real slow with the rollout. But like, Charger's starting to sell better now, but like Charger still is just too expensive and too high performing. They need a slower version for people who just want cool looks and a low price tag. That's how they sold so many Chargers and Challengers. And I think, RT is too expensive. It's too aggressive still. I think it's a step in the right direction, and it's good to have all these middle grounds. But like, if you're trying to actually improve your company's fortunes, you got to drop the all-wheel drive thing as a mandatory thing. You got to, drop in either Hurricane 4 or Pentastar V6. Doesn't matter. Just, a cheaper, lower horsepower engine, drop the all-wheel drive, and then, drop the price tag by 10 grand. And then you start getting people off the sidelines real quick, I think. And they know this. They know the formula. It's just they're, for some reason, not providing that immediately, even though that should be a real quick thing for them to do. I don't know why. But anyway, yeah. That's my concern there for Celica. I'm sorry for the very tangential, roundabout discussions here tonight. But anyway, Jacob says the car market is just priced wild. My friend works at Volkswagen, and the new Golf R was on their showroom for 55 grand. It's an amazing car, but tough sell at that yearly base model M2 costs. Yeah, and that's kind of the concern with a lot of those things is, I don't know. I think Golf R, maybe it was like the Euro edition kind of thing or whatever, but I feel like most Golf Rs are still just barely over 50. But I think that, yeah, like that's the danger with a lot of those things, is you do start getting into real actual luxury stuff once you get too high with the mainstream stuff. And, because like, yeah, if it's 55 for a Golf R and you're in the bracket of spending 50 grand plus, I'd go lightly used Audi RS3 for the same money. And Fook, thanks for I appreciate the fun little sticker there. I don't know. Do they have a bunch of cool ones to pick from? I don't know. Or is it random? I don't know how that works. I don't ever actually participate in other people's live streams, unfortunately. But that's fun. Hopefully you can have some influence and pick some fun stuff. But it says stay hydrated. So yeah, thank you, Fook, and we'll do. But yeah, so like, if I'm going out and spending 55 grand on something German and turbocharged like that, like I'm going RS3 all day long. So yeah, that's kind of and that's also why the evergreen rumor that keeps on coming back for some dumb reason is, 5-cylinder Golf R. 5-cylinder Golf R with a markup, assuming that actually was viable, and it's not, in my opinion. But even if that were a thing, it'll be 60 grand. Just spend 5 grand more for the Audi and probably have less of a markup at this point. Thank you, Lancelot, for the sticker as well there. But like that's one of those things, yeah, where price creep in cars is absolutely a problem. And I see you've already mentioned the same thing about the RS3 as well. So again, right on the same page there. Let me see. Jacob says the Amazon Rivian vans are so much better than our raggedy older trucks. Constant issues. However, all the trucks are driven hard. We have places to be. That's for sure. I mean, man, they're some of the loudest vehicles in my neighborhood for sure, without doubt. Like, I mean, they rip sometimes. I mean, yeah, they got places to be. I get it, but like some of these things, it's like, man, they are driving those things hard for sure. So I can envision all the issues they probably have. And another Jacob here says base M2 is now 70 grand. I have one on order. A little worried about the ride quality versus my M440i I sold. Hopefully it'll be okay. I mean, I don't know if they've changed the suspension tuning, but I did review the base M2 from a couple of years ago with the manual, and that was fine. It was comfy. Honestly, it kind of felt Mustang-like. I don't think it's quite as comfy as a Mustang, but it's in a similar ballpark. It also feels fairly close from a size standpoint because they've gotten so much bigger for the new generation. But like, I think M2 is going to be a nice daily. I don't think you have to worry too much. I mean, you're used to the size from the M440. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be too much worse. I mean, you probably know those cars better than I do, but yeah, from my memory, I don't think it's going to be too bad, hopefully. And if it is, I don't know what the smallest wheels you can get on those, if you ordered one of the base wheels or not, but you can always downsize, put some thicker sidewall on it. That should help too. And also even some of the aftermarket springs, oftentimes, even like coilovers, sometimes can be more comfortable than factory. So there's some hope there too, even if you need to soften it up afterwards. And Jacob says, one truck I drove had 450,000 miles. Steering wheel was crooked. Got to someone's house, put it in park and delivered. Turned around and the truck was rolling down the road. Had to use e-brake as the parking brake broke. Wow, that's nuts, man. You've got some stories. I'm sure there's a whole lot more, but that's funny. And Fook says, sorry, was testing out the free jewel gift from YouTube. No, that's fun. Thanks for those. I enjoy those. So by all means, I don't know if it affects the live stream or if it helps or what. I don't really understand the whole mentality of the jewels from YouTube's standpoint of it, but it's fun and makes these more interactive and all that. So yeah, thanks for those, and Lancelot as well. And Luke says, I've never had a wagon. I've never had a V8. I've never had 2 doors. I've never had a hatchback. I guess I need to find a 2-door V8 hatchback. Yeah, I think that C7 Corvette could kind of scratch that itch in all those ways. You kind of have all that stuff with those. I'm trying to think if there's any others. That might be the only one that actually does all those things, aside from like Fox Body Mustang. Yeah, but I think C7s are a really good value on the used market. So that is a solid used sports car buy too, in my opinion. Yeah, also B Mitchell, yeah, saying any of the earlier ones also C5 to C7. Even I think, well, didn't C4 have the hatch, right, too? Obviously not on C3 or C2 or C1, but I thought C4 did. But Luke says old 2-door Golf V8 swap. Well, that's another way to do it for sure. Yeah. All All right. Well, I mean, I think we actually have caught up to comments here. I mean, I'm happy to hang for another 20 minutes if you guys want to, but we can also wrap up if you guys want. It's up to you. I know again, probably a lower amount of people hanging here tonight because of the World Cup, although that probably is done now, or maybe not. I don't know. Those games go pretty long, right? I'm completely ignorant when it comes to World Cup stuff, but I see. Yeah, last one says yeah. C4 had the hatch for the glass in the back. Oh, so it wasn't the whole thing. It was just the glass. Gotcha. Okay. And Jacob says, "What's a car that you really didn't enjoy your time with?" Um. Well, I'd say as far as more recent stuff goes, the thing that drove me crazy the most in the past year and a half has been key fobs and not having them work or not having them at all. That was the biggest complaint I had with the Rivian. There's other complaints too, but the Rivian not having a reliable key fob experience drove me crazy. The Polestar 3 was slightly better, but that also was very stupid with the key fob, like because it has like a little dongle thing, and you can either use that or use a key card, but it's all this NFC crap instead, which I'm not a fan of for getting into your car. Like I want to have the car just work every time with the key. But like, with a Polestar, like the battery is so tiny for some, who knows what reason they decided to go with a battery that had the lifespan of a goldfish. But like the battery in that thing, you had to charge it every like 2 weeks or something. And so you had to always be leaving the key on the wireless charging mat in the car, and I hated that. The Rivian too, just like I never got the key fob to actually work or the key card to work reliably. So I finally had to convince, and this was after like half a week of frustrating experience with the R1T. I finally got them to give me app access, so I downloaded the Rivian app, signed in like as if it was my own truck, and then I had to every time it wouldn't even work. Just me walking up to the truck and pulling on the door handle, like that didn't work. So every time, even with that, I had to pull my phone out of my pocket, hit the unlock button, it would launch the app first. So pull the phone out of my pocket, launch the Rivian app, hit unlock, and then get into the car. Versus having a fob in my pocket, like everyone has done for the past 15 plus years, grab the door handle and open. We figured this out 20 years ago. Why are we not doing this, especially on $100,000 car where it's not a cost cutting thing? If this is some future thing, you can also have a digital key and a key fob. So it's just them being cheap, and it drove me crazy. And like, it takes a lot, but like the Rivian actually gave me a real headache. Like, no, I'm not saying that figuratively. Like, I was so stressed and annoyed every time I had to go out to that thing and mess with that because it was embarrassing. I'd be in a parking lot. I'm standing there. People think I'm like trying to break into someone's truck because I'm playing with the door handle and it's not working. I'm walking around to the other side. That's not working. I'm fumbling with my phone and everything. And then, same issue whenever I park, and then I got to leave. And I just was telling my family, just go into the restaurant. I'll see you in 5 minutes while I get this damn thing to lock itself. Like it drove me crazy. And I actually had a headache at one point from just dealing with that. And maybe I had a bad one because some people don't seem to have an issue with that. And Rivian seems to sell pretty well, despite the fact they don't have that or CarPlay, which was the other cardinal sin, in my opinion, for that thing. But like key fobs, like just do a key fob the normal way. Don't try and reinvent the wheel. That's probably my biggest pet peeve right now with cars, because there's more and more that are trying to like tiptoe into not giving you a key. And it's like, nope, I'm going to blast them every single time unless that is perfect. Like in some of the Teslas, it truly seems like it's actually perfect connectivity every time almost. Okay, fine. If it works perfect, I have no complaints. But the second it doesn't open, when I grab that handle, I'm done. I'm done. Like I'm not, especially when we're talking about expensive stuff and every car being so expensive these days. These are first world problems. But if I need to grab for more than 2 seconds before that door opens, nope. Like something that's that expensive, you should have figured that out by now, and that's so anyway, you can see how much that gets me worked up, but that's the main thing for sure. And let me see. Jacob says, good to know on the M2 quality. Appreciate it as always. Yeah, absolutely. And definitely, I'm sure you've already watched, but if you haven't seen it, you can go watch my M2 review for all my thoughts. And I might have more in the moment impressions on that that would be insightful to you, possibly, maybe not. I'm sure you've test driven them and stuff already yourself, but um, happy to help if I can, you know. Um, and Luke says, World Cup better be filled with coffee. Oh, that World Cup. Yeah. Yeah, it's apparently a pretty big deal. I'm not into soccer, so it's all lost on me. But I'm glad that people are having a great time here with the World Cup. It seems. And Jacob says you strike me as a BMW kind of guy. E92 M3. I could see you in an E32. Love me an E36, E39, E46. Any favorite pick? Um, so I mean, I appreciate the older BMWs. I've never had a soft spot for BMW, despite the fact I worked at a BMW dealer from 2007 to 2011. So I have a lot of experience, and I had a lot of cool opportunities to I was the first person to drive a lot of E60 and E92 M3s and M5s, off the truck and take the wrappings off of them for the first time and all that kind of stuff. But I think if it were me, like probably my favorite BMW is the ones I really love and potentially could see myself owning at some point, but I feel like I'd go for other stuff. But it would be the special ones that we'll never see again. The V10 M5, the V8 M3. Those are my favorites. I mean the inline six stuff, obviously legendary. But yeah, I don't know. For me, just like I don't know what it is, just the way BMW did some things, just kind of it was always a little off to me. And now, especially with the new styling, I just don't like a lot of them. But I'm open to them. Like, I mean, I actually am trying again, we'll see what money is like next year. I have no idea. But like if we have money for leasing a new luxury EV next year, I would actually be super into the new i3. And I'm trying to talk Beth back into a sedan because she really enjoyed the sedans, and we don't really need crossover at this point. And I'm not a huge fan of crossovers. I mean, the Lyric's wonderful, and there's lots of good crossovers. But like personally, for stuff I want to own, I love being in a sedan. I love being a little bit lower, and a little lighter and all that. So like I would love to go for an i3. So I mean, I would actually be open to that if again money allowed and Beth was into it, and if it also fit for us, because I don't know how well it would fit a car seat, and that might be something that in theory sounds more plausible and workable than it actually is in reality. But if it has a good amount of back seat space, I mean, I would actually I think the i3 is the first BMW in a while where I'm like, oh, I would actually like buy that. And I like the styling. It's packaged well. It's done pretty well with a few minor gripes. I still hate the vertical spoke on the steering wheel, but otherwise it's really, really good. But I think the last time I felt that, I mean, no hate to the new M2 because the new M2 is a really cool car. I really like the new 2 Series in general, but I think for me, the prior Gen M2, when they were really small still, that was probably the last BMW that I was like, I would love to own one of these. Like this would be right up my alley. Because honestly, especially when I did my first M2 review back then, that was when I was still in the BRZ or was BRZ adjacent, and I was like, this is just like a more fun BRZ. And I think I actually said that in my first review of the last generation. Like this is like a more fun, great stepping stone up from the BRZ. And if I had the money even back then, I would have loved to graduate from BRZ into M2. Just did not have that kind of money. Still don't. But like that's like that would be, I think, the one of the real high watermarks for modern BMW. So that's probably one of my favorites. And I think again, we will see what happens with the Fiat once that lease is done here in 2028. But one of the cars on my radar to potentially replace it, if I'm going to go for a used performance car and I'm not going to go for something that's a more practical four-door, but like I really kind of have my eye on an M240i convertible from the last generation. That offered that because they don't do it obviously for the current ones, but like because I've always wanted a convertible, but I need a workable back seat, with the family. I love a good sound, so like that, and it's small, so it kind of is that thing. It's rear-wheel drive, so it's got all the right components. So I think that that's one BMW I would actually consider buying, and it seems like it's, reasonably priced, so it would be somewhat obtainable. Um, but yeah, I honestly though I've never really wanted many other BMWs beyond those few. Good cars, nothing against them, but just not for me for one reason or another. Typically, it's been my experience with a lot of them. And B. Mitchell says, "Yeah, at least I don't have the Polestar to kick around anymore." Yeah, that's true. Polestar. Well, I mean, I'm sad they're going away though, because that to me is complete BS. But like, yeah, I think as much as the Polestar had its faults, it's something. Appreciate the mic drop there, Jacob. Even the Polestar had its faults. I think it's it's a car that was getting better, and I think the Polestar 4 seemed to have some promise. But if nothing else, it's competition. Even if it's not great competition, it's competition. I think competition in a free market, makes things better. And even I think it was Ford. I think Jim Farley just said this. Somebody said this just recently, where they were like, "We would not be doing this other thing if it wasn't for the competition." And they were saying how competition really does make things better. Or maybe it was no, it was Tim Kaniskis. He was on a podcast I was listening to, and he was saying how I can't remember what he was talking about, but he was talking about something and how competition is kind of one of the reasons why they're in some of these spaces they're in, and how that makes things better. And he's thankful for it, even though you know um, it's sometimes hard to compete, but like that makes things better. And so I think anytime a vehicle leaves the market, like that's always bad news for me, because it's less options for consumers. Even if they're bad options, it's an option, and there's people who truly like them, and maybe they don't have the issues I had with them or whatever. Because just because I don't like something doesn't mean someone else won't really enjoy it. So I think like I'm sad, and I think it's also I think a worrying sign for some other brands that aren't super strong. I think it makes me wonder about Alfa Romeo. I think they're probably on borrowed time here in America. I think Fiat, could be on their way out here. Again, I don't know what qualifies for, all these, things, but whether it's the Chinese cyber thing, or it's tariffs, or there's just all these things that are, I think, going to reduce choice in America, unfortunately. And, and also like with quotes, like Jim Farley's even saying like that's what I got it mixed up. Tim Kaniskis said competition was good. Jim Farley said he wanted less competition, and that like, oh, because we build more stuff in America than everyone else, like we should penalize everyone for building less in America than we do, which is kind of what tariffs already are doing. But he wants even more penalties, because obviously he wants Ford to be the top dog. But like, I think competition makes things better. So instead of trying to regulate it away, like let the market, do what the market's going to do, and quit messing with the car market. But unfortunately, that's doesn't seem like that's in the cards. So we'll have to see what the regulations do. But Garth Parker says, "I'm in the minority. The new Charger is growing on me. I love that it has all-wheel drive. It's large, comfy. Love that it's a hatch. Inline six is strong, gives options of 2-door, 4-door. I'm glad you're excited about it. It sounds like, I mean, I don't know if the rumor is true, but like there was one rumor, I think actually Lancelot sent me a video, that it sounds like they are maybe not doing a Hellcat V8 Charger, which I can't imagine them not doing that. And I feel like they've hinted at that kind of as well. But maybe they have something else up their sleeve. Apparently, like the newest rumors are suggesting maybe that's not happening anymore. But I think that the Charger, it's going to just take time for people to adjust. But I think once they see that motor could be like a new modern 2JZ, like I think it's people will get behind it eventually. It just again takes time. And Luke says, "Hey boss, sorry I'm late for work. I had to charge my keys." Right? Yeah, with a Polestar, that would actually be a valid excuse. Maybe it wouldn't fly, but it would be the truth. And Garth Parker says, "For the record, my brother has a 6.4 Hemi Challenger, and I get it. It's fun and great, but the new Charger is more user friendly. Love the Hemi V8. He lets me drive it when I get the itch. So that's fun that you can have that option when you want it." And yeah, the new Chargers are great. And that's another car, like a lot of cars, whether it's EVs or whatever, like if you just drive them, you see it's a really good car. And you might change your perspective, or you might say, well, yeah, I don't love the styling, or I don't love the way this is done or whatever, but like it drives really good. And I think that convinces a lot of people about all kinds of stuff. They weren't into something and they're like, oh, but then I rode in it and I'm like, wow, this is better than I thought. And it's very effective. A lot of people do not buy based on spreadsheets. They buy by emotion and by the anecdotal evidence they collect randomly by chance, and that influences a whole lot of car buying decisions for sure. And Decepticon, thanks for stopping by. He says, hey, Matt, my spot of the week has been a BMW XM with an M3 CSL color scheme. Wow. That's crazy. Had the matte gray paint, red accents, and yellow headlights. Was really cool. Then later on, I saw a labeled red. Yeah, a red label. Or I don't even know. That's a whole other thing with the way they changed up the name on that. But that's glad you were excited about that. I still cringe when I see XMs personally. That hasn't really grown on me too much, but it's less cringy than a Cybertruck. So everything's relative these days. And Jacob says Tesla owners don't usually use their fobs, as far as I know. Many use the app or the magnetic card in their wallet. Wow, to think Rivian is so odd. Yeah, and maybe I truly had bad luck, just like the Z Nismo drove like crap for me, but everyone else loves it. It could be one of those kinds of things too. I don't know. But Jacob says, how do you feel about GM ditching CarPlay? Oh, the 5 minutes we have remaining in this live stream is not enough time for me to rant about that. It's I hate it. That's why we have the lyric instead of the optic, for the most part. That's why every single time I'm in a GM vehicle, I complain about it. It's taking choice away from consumers, and it's just a very blatant data cash grab. And they just got fined and found guilty of selling data already. And I think they're not going to be able to repeat that, but like just the fact that they're selling even the data packages, like all these cars without CarPlay. Yeah, sure, you can run SiriusXM natively, you can run Waze natively, you can run Spotify natively, but you need to pay them for the data connection. They get a cut of that. Obviously, that's a cell provider thing, so they're mostly just helping out AT&T or whoever runs that. But like, they get a kickback from that. They get a piece of that. This is the thing. The holy grail for car companies has been, how do we monetize all of these millions of used cars that are on the roads that we lost? Once that car drove off the showroom floor new, aside from servicing, they don't monetize them. And this is the thing that is just making them foam at the mouth with excitement. Is okay, every single thing, once that data package expires, everyone will have to pay GM for their head unit to work fully for the rest of that car's life. You're going to be paying GM a subscription. That's why they're doing that. They can BS you up and down. Same with Rivian. They do the same exact thing. And that's why I don't give them any grace for that either. It's straight up, you want to sell data. You can try and blow as much smoke up people's butts as you want, but like, you are making money off of this. That's it. And you're making money off of it in perpetuity. That is it. All the other crap about, oh, well, it hurts our user experience, blah, blah, blah. You don't have to force people into CarPlay either. CarPlay is an app. You can click, I want to use CarPlay, and it puts CarPlay on the screen. If you truly think you make a better thing, people can use that better thing, but let them make that choice and offer them both things. And that's one thing with the faults of Ford. Jim Farley has just said that exact thing. And I'm happy to see him at least, make some sense there. So that's great. But like, yeah, that's, I see Luke trying to warn him about starting me on CarPlay. Jacob's new here, so he hasn't heard all the tired rants that everyone else has probably heard 15 times too many at this point. But yeah, so that's my download on CarPlay. But thank you also for the jewels there, Jacob. And Goth Rocker says, companies that do not have an actual key or smart key, I will not buy. Very stupid having a car with no real key or smart key. Very stupid. Yep. And Jacob says, you speaking about borrowed time makes me think of Buick. China seems to be the only strong market for them. Yeah, and that's not as strong as it used to be either. So I think you can lump Buick into that borrowed time thing as well, especially because we'll see what happens. But the Buick Envision, which I think is one of their top sellers, if not the top seller for them, as their compact crossover in that very popular segment, that is built in China. And if they don't get this exemption, they're going to be in the same problem as Polestar, in the same predicament. And, they have other products. The Invista sells very well. The Enclave sells very well. So I don't think Buick's going to just exit the market. But again, it's just you're concocting this perfect storm of, okay, China sales are dropping off. No, now you're already paying tariffs to get these things in. The Invista's imported from Korea, China for Envision. The Enclave's the only one even built in North America, I think. So like, you're paying tariffs out the wazoo. You might not even be able to legally sell the Envision here if they don't get the exemption, which they'll probably get. But if they don't get that, I mean, you got 2 out of 3 that are uphill battles there. And and you also, with the Invista, you have Trax still from Chevy, so you still have that doing 200,000 units a year. Do you need Invista? Probably not. Do you need Enclave? Probably not. And actually, we might be starting to see some of these signs point to Buick going away, because we just heard about an XT6 coming back. Now, I don't know what platform XT6 will use, but logic would suggest, if we're trying to do it on the cheap, taking the same platform as Enclave, which is the same thing they use for Traverse, and for also the GMC Acadia, make a Cadillac version of that, especially if you're trying to do it, quickly and cheaply. Then if you've got Chevy, GMC, and Cadillac, do you need the Buick? I think that's probably too much overlap anyway, especially with how GMC is so premium these days, like with Denali and stuff. I don't think you need Enclave, so you don't need that. Envision maybe not even allowed to be able to be here, and Invista kind of redundant too. I don't think there's a good, and if you don't have China subsidizing it anymore, with their strong sales there, you have nowhere to go. No one buys Buicks in Europe or anything. I don't think they're even offered for most places. So like, what's the point of having Buick around? It's shrinking the reasons for Buick. It was always about China. That was the only reason they survived 2008 was China. And so I think Buick's, going to be on its way out here, depending on how things play out. It could absolutely be the end of Buick because of, especially partially at least, tariffs and regulations here. We'll see. Let me see. B. Mitchell says cash grab or cachet grab. Yes, that as well. Yeah. And Jacob says, hey, man, I seriously appreciate you taking time to connect with us. I'll definitely never forget this opportunity and have loved talking with you, like catching up with an old friend I've known forever. Well, thank you so much. And I hope you can join some of these in the future if your time allows. But it was great to interact. And thank you for the great questions here tonight, Jacob. And he says, first time I ever watched a live stream on YouTube. Loved it. Mainly just to stick to your videos. Well, I'm glad you watched the videos too. Thank you so much for that too. But yeah, these live streams every Sunday and most Wednesdays here, again, aside from the adjusted schedule for the World Cup, but we do these every week, twice a week. So if you enjoy these, we're always talking about, the latest car news, hearing me rant, answering some questions, hopefully being useful for a few people here at least. But thank you all so much for hanging out here tonight. But we have crossed the 2-hour mark, so we'll sign off here. And see, it's time to put Matt away for the night. Yes, get me off my soapbox and put me to bed. So thank you all so much, though, for hanging out here. Hope you have a great week. Stay tuned for some more good videos here this week. And I'll see you on Wednesday for a 1-hour live as well. But have a great, safe, happy, healthy week. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching and take care.